This morning, the vote that could change Miami-Dade County government for years to come. A look at the proposed charter amendments with an attorney who served on the Charter Review Task Force. And helping South Florida's most vulnerable families. CBS 4 Chief I-Team investigator Michelle Gillen has the story of one family in need and how concerned citizens are stepping in when the system fails. Now, from CBS 4 News, this is News and Views with Eliott Rodriguez.
Good morning, everybody. Miami-Dade voters will go to the polls on May 24th to elect a new mayor and 2 new county commissioners. But they will also weigh in on 6 amendments to the county's home rule charter that could change Miami-Dade's government for many years to come. Joining me to talk about these charter changes is Jorge Luis Lopez. He's an attorney who has served on the Miami-Dade County Charter Review Task Force. And Jorge Luis, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
The mayoral race has gotten a lot of attention,
yes.
But these 6 charter changes, some might argue, could have a more profound impact on Miami-Dade than the mayor that we're electing for a little over a year.
Amen. I mean, the reality is that these charter amendments will usher in a whole new era of reform, potentially. More importantly, they'll be around for a lot longer than any one of the mayors will be because of their term limits.
Before we talk about the amendments themselves, these were suggested by a task force back in 2008. Right. What happened? Were they just put on the shelf?
Well, a form of these amendments, in fact, a total of 18 recommendations were made by our task force, spearheaded by our chairman, Victor Diaz, who did a very disciplined job. You can imagine all the opinions. The commission saw many of them. In fact, at the time, Commissioner Carlos Jimenez, who served on the task force as well, presented the initiatives for vote by the commissioners, but most of them were either shelved, put aside for further deliberations, but never saw the light of day in terms of voters' opportunity to pass.
Many might say that maybe under pressure because of the recall of Mayor Alvarez and under pressure from Norman Brayman, these are now before the voters. And let's talk about them specifically. And the first one is the term limits and salary for commissioners. Let's talk first of all about the term limits.
Well, we've discussed term limits for a long time. The task force took the view, the majority of the task force took the view that 8 years was enough, as they say. This amendment has 12 years, and that's created a big difference in the community at large and many of the members of the task force as well. So there's a huge division on that, and I, for one, am not sure where that's going to end at the end of the day.
And the salary for commissioners who now make a part-time salary would make a full-time salary, I believe it's $92,000 a year?
$92,000.
But they would not be allowed to have other jobs outside.
And that effort comes from 2 sides. One is, what kind of candidates are you attracting that would be willing to give up their real jobs to be public servants? And so historically, this issue has been before the voters. It has failed every time it's gone before the voters, independent of term limits.
Why do you think it has failed? I think it's because people see, we're going to give them $92,000 and automatically they say no. Agreed.
I think my personal view on a lot of these issues is they become referendums on people, less about the substance of the issue. And right now, with the commission having very poor marks among the electorate, they love their district commissioner, but they really don't like the commission as a whole, and they get poor grades in terms of job performance. So you have that counterbalance. They may want to support the commissioner that represents them, but as a commission of the whole, there's probably 1 or 2 that they may not like.
What about the ban on lobbying? What does it call for?
Well, there's a ban on lobbying commissioners coming back to lobby the commission. It's a traditional revolving door restriction, and that's a very healthy restriction. In my opinion, even individuals like myself who served in government, when you leave government, there should be a period, in this particular case it's 2 years, that one should stay away from making contacts with people you've worked with.
And now voters are going to be asked to eliminate the strong mayor form of government after Miami-Dade voters voted to bring in the Miami-Dade. That's confusing to a lot of people.
It is, and I think it has the genesis is a combination of current events, right? The recall, and there's some who would claim that the frustration evidence in the recall was less about the the person, but more about the power, and that the too much power does change the balance of the commission. The evidence that we have is the electorate supported the strong mayor in 2007, supported getting rid of the county manager in 2008. Mm-hmm. So we have two of those clearly out there. This initiative, which is more of a let's ask the community what they really want their system to look like, I'm not so sure will prevail.
There's also a question to make it easier to recall commissioners, not having to notarize signatures, right?
Yes, and that was one of multiple elements, Eliott, that would clear up the citizens' right to petition their government. And our task force took a lot of time to look over that. Former Mayor Dermer, in particular, brought a lot of those issues to our attention. This one would be helpful, because if you have to have a notary execute every single one of these pages, you not only have the delay and cost, but you also have the potential for legal challenges, which was the basis of the last two challenges.
Okay, now there's a question on the ballot there that would allow the Charter Review Task Force to bring proposals directly to the electorate. And you told me before we went on camera that you see this as the most important one. Why?
This is the one this is the game changer. And the reason for it being a game changer is that we've had a task force before, and for example in 2008 we bring all these recommendations to the commission, and for whatever reason, political or otherwise, many of these recommendations never really get to the electorate. This change will not only force every 4 years during the presidential election a group of citizens, and that's very critical because no elected official at the county can serve on this commission. They do appoint, but the appointment process is a public, open qualification process. We have a number of those in the county right now. One for Jackson, for example, is going on as we speak. But then if an extraordinary number or supermajority of members agree on an initiative, it goes directly to the voters, unchanged by the commission, and it will go on the ballot during the presidential election, which we know is a very high turnout election.
And voters will have the option of deciding on each one of these
every single one
individually.
Yes.
What do you say to people like Norman Brayman and even some of the mayoral candidates who say, well, this is not enough, we wanted more, and we're only getting a piece of what we wanted?
I would say reform delayed is reform denied. So any one of these measures, and particularly the one that we just spoke about, the task force, the one clarifying conflicts with commissioners and their outside employment, the one certainly for petitions and initiatives, the independent inspector general item that's also on the ballot. If we can get those online immediately, we're all going to be the better for. Okay. So it is a challenge. You have to pick and choose between some complex language on the ballot, but I would hope folks will take the time and vote their conscience on each one. It's
on there on the Miami-Dade Elections Department website. Right. You can read these amendments and familiarize yourself with them because, yes, like you said, these are very important amendments that we're voting on. Jorge Luis Lopez, who served on the Charter Review Committee, thank you very much.
Thank you
for joining us on our show. Nice having you here.
Appreciate
All right, still ahead. How one family was rescued from terrible living conditions. When News and Views continue, stay with us.